Granny flats. It's a topic that people have been asking me to talk about for quite some time, and I keep dodging talking about the topic. Unfortunately, it's not a black and white topic. It is a very, very messy topic with lots and lots of grey areas, hence the reason why I keep dodging talking about it. But I've decided to bite the bullet, and in today's video, I'm going to tell you what I do actually know, and then I'm going to leave you to fill in the blanks. Okay, so when it comes to granny flats, there are 4 key rules that you need to consider. Number 1, less than 80 meters squared. So let me clarify that. We need to go GFA. So your gross floor area, which is essentially your floor area minus any verandas, parking areas, also known as garages, and access ways, aka stairs. So internal floor area minus those few things needs to be no greater than 80 square meters. That's typically like a 1-bedroom unit. So it's quite generous, really. It used to be 70 square meters under the old planning scheme. So it's actually quite generous, believe it or not. Okay, point number 2, let's go less than 20 meters. So the primary dwelling, the main dwelling on the property, needs to be within 20 meters of the secondary dwelling, which is the formal name for a granny flat. So no more than 20 meters separation between the main dwelling and the granny flat. Number 3, let's go 5 people. So you're allowed no more than 5 unrelated people on the property at any one time. And I mean living permanently on the property at any one time. When it comes to related people, they need to be related by blood, marriage, or adoption. So council went through a stage a few years ago, probably a bit more than a few years ago now, where people were trying to claim they were brothers of religion. Unfortunately, for the purpose of this sort of stuff, that ain't going to fly. So just to repeat, it needs to be blood, marriage, or adoption that you're related by. If you're related by those things, you can have as many as you want. So if you've got a family of 16, you can have 16 people living on that property. But if they're not related, you're limited to a maximum of 5 people on the entire site. So that's across both the primary dwelling and the secondary dwelling. So the main dwelling and the granny flat. Now, pretty straightforward so far, hey? They're nice quantitative black and white requirements. Right now you're sitting there going, this is pretty easy. I don't know what you're talking about, all this messiness, this grey area. Yeah, it's this next one that's the killer. Let's go 1 household. Now you'd think it'd be pretty easy to define what a household is. Yeah, it ain't. Okay, so the definition, it used to say, let me make sure I get my wording correct here, it used to say for the common provision of food and household services. It has been changed to say the shared provision of food and essentials for living, I believe it is, something like that. Essentially the key is you need to have common provision for food and shared essentials for living. What's that mean? It could mean all sorts of things. This is where we start to get really, really great. So I believe council's intent is to make sure that you're using, that the people are operating, or I should say not operating, living, interacting together on the site. They're not living independently. So council doesn't want you to rent out that granny flat to a totally unrelated party. They want everyone living together in some sort of coordinated sort of fashion. The wording doesn't really give them the power to enforce that. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, guys. And this is where all the ambiguity, or that's a good word to get out this time of the morning, and confusion comes about. If you talk to most certifiers out there, most of the people that I've spoken to are operating on the basis of if you have a shared kitchen, then you have the common provision for food. And if you have a shared laundry, then you have the common provision for essential services. Oh, I lost it. You know, whatever I said in the beginning there. That essential services type thing. Then they go on to say, well, hey, a kitchenette is not a kitchen. The difference being in a kitchen you need like a full oven and everything, whereas a kitchenette you don't have those facilities. So in theory, the person living in the granny flat has to venture into the main dwelling each night they want to bake their cake, or each night they want to do their roast or whatever. Yeah, don't know if that quite goes in with council's intent. I know I personally, and I'm kind of making myself look like a bit of an idiot here, but I'll put it out there. In my old house, I owned that house for almost 8 years. Not once did I turn that oven on. I had threw a baby shower one time and some friends turned it on, but I personally never used it. So it would be quite easy for someone like myself to go and live in that granny flat totally independent of the house without the oven. I wouldn't care less, it wouldn't bother me. So yeah, having a kitchenette and a kitchen, I don't personally think that gives you the shared provision for food. I don't think it quite meets that requirement. But as I said, there are a lot of people out there that are operating on that basis. And I can see how they kind of draw that conclusion. And then the shared laundry, it's not too hard to put a second door on the laundry and have people coming in from different entrances and again, never interacting. So that's, from a practical sense, how most people are actually doing it on the day-to-day sort of scenario, seeing how people are playing it out at the moment. Kitchen, kitchenette, I'll do it around the other way, kitchenette, kitchen and shared laundry. But I think if council was to actually be asked, and we have tried this a couple of times, and unfortunately each time they go legal on us because they realise they don't have the clear answers, which frustrates the crap out of me. But yeah, unfortunately I think if push came to shove and council was to make a call on it, I don't believe they would support that interpretation. So, they're the 4 things. Next we come to application. Yes, you can lodge an application with council to break any one of those things or a combination of those things. So you could say, hey, I want to go 86 square metres in terms of GFA, or I want 6 people living on the property. It's a code accessible application, doesn't sound too scary. I can tell you now, it ain't going to be approved. I think in almost 15 years I've been doing this job, I've lodged a few of those applications and only one has been successful. That one was out at Whoop Whoop. It was out near Colo on a rural property. We were able to argue that they needed a caretaker on the premises and hence why they needed that second dwelling that was slightly larger, slightly further away. It had a lot of political support back then. It totally unique, rare situation, and it was a struggle to get that one over the line. So if you're just on a standard sort of 405 square metre block or you're somewhere in the city, yeah, nah, council's not going to support it. And the reason they're not going to support it is it goes against their intent. Instead of low density residential zones or the character residential zones, they want single houses on decent sized blocks. That's to preserve residential amenity, all of that sort of stuff. The minute you go putting a second dwelling on the property, a totally independent, not a granny flat, not a secondary dwelling, but a totally independent dwelling with more than one household as an example, that's intensifying the number of people on the property, the density in the area. It goes against council's intent for that area. So they're not going to support it. I'm telling you now, you're wasting your money unless you're a really unique situation like that Colo one, where it's a rural property, political support, blah, 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 blah. Just don't bother lodging it. That's my advice. What if? Now, people naturally say, oh, what if I just go and operate it? Who's going to bust me? So what if I suddenly have an extra person living in there? Or what if I don't comply with the household rules? As you would have seen, if you've seen my Airbnb video, the reality is council doesn't necessarily have the resources to go around and police this thing. However, there are 2 things that you do need to consider. If you get a complaint, and that complaint can come around for a few different reasons. Number 1, if you peeve your neighbours off, let's say a noise complaint because you've got too many people living on the property, they go and complain to council. Council does have a responsibility to act on those complaints, so they're going to come out. Number 2, if you peeve your neighbour off just for any other reason, you start building a fence they don't like, you put a carport up they don't like, you do something to annoy your neighbour, they're going to go hunting for something to ping you on. This, if they do their research, is what they're going to ping you on. Or, as more often happens, someone down the street goes, I want to build a granny flat. They go to council or they talk to a right town planner and they get this, yeah, don't bother lodging advice. They go, but hold on a sec, Joe up the street did it, why can't I do it? And then naturally they lodge a complaint because they get bitter and twisted and all that sort of stuff. And next thing you know, council's out on site. So that's how the complaints come about. When council comes out on site, the reality is one of the options they will give you via the show cause notice is to cease the use, which essentially means convert it back to 1 household, 5 people, blah, 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 blah. Doesn't seem too crazy. Except you think about it. What if you just spent, let's say, $100,000 creating that granny flat, so renovating that granny flat, and you've only had it in use or operation for, let's say, a month? You're going to be pretty PO'd about the fact that you have to cease that use. I mean, if you've been operating, let's say, 10, 20 years and you only put 10 grand into it, yeah, you're probably not going to care. But if you put a bucket load of money in, or you think about it, if you've tied yourself up in a rental agreement and it's a 12-month rental agreement, you've still got 9 months to go or whatever, yeah, it's going to cause you a few headaches. So that's one issue you've got to weigh up. The bigger issue for me, insurance. Now, not every insurer is going to do this. Suncorp was the first one, from what I've heard, during the 2011 floods to actually start acting on this. They're going through history, looking for previous approvals, making sure the uses are lawful before they pay out on a claim. You think about it, you have a fire in that kitchenette in the granny flat, or someone gets injured in that granny flat and you need to lodge a complaint, or they want to lodge a claim against you, let me get my words out, then you're going to be up a certain creek without a paddle. Not a position I personally want to be in. So yes, you could go and operate illegally, you could go and do all this stuff. You just need to weigh up the risk of council turning up on your doorstep and telling you to cease the use and the risk of insurance issues. I think that Is there anything I want to talk about? Oh no, there is one more point I want to make. Obviously, there's a lot of ambiguity about this point right here. At the end of the day, we've seen situations where clients have got that show cause notice. The council turned up on their doorstep and basically said, you need to either prove that you have approval, cease the use, or get approval. As I said, cease the use was the option I was talking about previously. You're not going to get the approval, don't worry about that. And you probably don't have the approval to start with. It's very rare that people actually do. Anyway, what was I going to say? I was making a very good point here. I was talking about council. Oh yes, in those situations, the owner is being adamant. We have shared provision for food. We have a shared kitchen and a kitchenette. We have laundry facilities, blah, whatever the situation is, they've found a way that they personally could justify that they had a household. Council sits there and goes, yeah, but that's not our intent. Our intent is not to make sure that people rent these things out separately, and we want the interaction, that cohabitation, and we don't believe you're meeting that definition. Who wins? The average homeowner versus council? Council's going to win. Because at the end of the day, to take council on, you've got to go to court. And when you're talking granny flats, that's a lot of money and a lot of time for a granny flat. The reality is it just doesn't stack up. It's not in the client's interest to go to court. So at the end of the day, it may not be fair, but council wins. In a situation where there is no black and white rules, if council has a differing opinion, which as I've said, they clearly do, it's just not out there in the public world, you're unfortunately not going to win. So, there you go. Now I think that covers everything I wanted to talk about. If you've liked this video, then I'd encourage you to go to our Facebook page, click on the videos tab, and have a look at the other videos that we've recorded. We've been doing the videos since January this year, and we've been doing it on a weekly basis. That's a lot of videos, so have some fun there. Anyway, thanks for watching.
For all you red tape lovers out there, I have one thing to say. Well, no actually, I've got three. Number one, the advice provided in these videos is general in nature. It's not site specific. You would be a silly Billy to go and make financial decisions based on this advice without first checking with the town planner. Don't be a silly Billy. Number two, Brisbane town planning is in no way linked to Brisbane City Council. The views expressed in these videos are my own, not council's. So if you don't like them, blame me, not council. Number three, what was my number three? Oh yeah, the views expressed in these videos are accurate at the time of recording. If you're watching this video back 10 years from now, the views may not be so accurate. That's all.